Good evening, and welcome to Sheriff Villanueva's Community Conversation. My name is Rick Rector. I'm the captain of Industry Sheriff Station. I would like to thank all our community members and our distinguished guests for being here. A very big thank you to Pastor Brian Chen for allowing us this beautiful church for our event. Additionally, I want to thank Sheriff Villanueva for joining us this evening. Thank you, sir. Additionally, I want to thank Under Sheriff Tim Murakami, East Patrol Division Chief George Valdez, and Commander Al Reyes for being here, as well as Commander John Bircher from our countywide services. It's all to see you, all great to see you in person. It's been a while. Thank you again for coming out. Industry Station is responsible for the law enforcement services in the City of Industry, La Puente, La Habra Heights, Bassett, Avocado Heights, North Whittier, the Valindas, and Hacienda Heights. Our area of responsibility covers 65 square miles, and has approximately 180,000 community members. I'm happy to report for this year, the crime rate in our areas are down. Hacienda Heights crime rate, Part 1 crimes are down 30%, which is incredible. Bassett, thank you. Bassett, Avocado Heights, North Whittier, down 34%. Valindas, down 18%. These are incredible numbers. This is due to the hard work of the men and women of Industry Sheriff Station, coupled with the great partnership we have with our community members. Our success also comes from the strong support and empowerment we get from Sheriff Villanueva to take the appropriate actions to not only keep our citizens safe, but to give them the peace of mind to enjoy all the wonderful things in their communities. It is definitely a team effort, and I want to thank all the community members for being such great partners, and thank you, sir, Sheriff. Quickly, one last thing, I wanted to let everyone know our fantastic Youth Activities League, known as the YAL, is slowly starting to reopen all their programs. Great activities for the spring. The outdoor sports are going to be starting up with basketball, baseball, our BMX program, our Shark Club, which is our scuba program, as well as our after-school dance classes for the young ladies. We are also working on getting our Camp Courage up and running, which is a fantastic place for the youngsters to get outdoors. And as you know, or maybe you don't know, during a regular year, a non-COVID year, there are over 5,000 kids that go through our YAL every single year, not just from our communities here, but communities across the county. And it's an unreal program, and we're very proud to have it here at Industry Station. All right, before moving on, I would like to go over the rules of conduct for this evening. Your participation is welcome and encouraged regardless of your views, opinions, or positions. Speakers must stop talking when their allotted time has ended so as to not to interfere with the rights of other speakers. Speakers should not be repetitive, and comments should relate to the subject matters being discussed at this meeting. Members of the public must be respectful of others. Personal attacks, heckling, badgering, interrupting, rudeness, abusive language, and profanity are not productive and are discouraged. Emotional outbursts are discouraged. Members of the public may not clap, cheer, whistle, or otherwise disrupt the orderly conduct of this meeting. Silently raising the roof or snapping fingers is supported and encouraged. Signs and posters are permitted, but may not be held in a way which blocks the view of another person, and may not be affixed to sticks, poles, doors, walls, or windows. The following actions may result in your removal if they disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the due and orderly course of this town hall meeting. Disorderly, loud, threatening, contemptuous, or insolent behavior, a breach of the peace, boisterous conduct or violent disturbance, disobedience of any lawful order, including an order to be seated or to refrain from speaking, and usage or ringing of cell phones not in silent mode. Before we start a short video of the history of our Sheriff's Department, I would like you all to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. And sir, you may start the video. Okay, without any further delay, I'd like to introduce the Sheriff of Los Angeles County, Mr. Alex Villanueva.
There we go. Gave me notes. How's everyone doing? What you saw in that video was 2.5 minutes of 172 years of history, all compressed and fast forward. As you can see, we started out as the Wild West. This is literally the end of the Wild West. And who would have thought in the year 2021, on June 8th, we had to invade the Wild West again, up in the high desert. We had illegal marijuana grows just all over the place, just overtaking entire communities and wreaking havoc on our farmers. Believe it or not, alfalfa, potato, carrot farmers, they were losing all their water to illegal cannabis grows. That's why you saw the big arm of the law. Literally, in this case, it was a big excavator just tearing through these hoop greenhouses, if you saw. We ended up confiscating about $1.2 billion worth of weed. And it became the largest seizure in our department's history, probably one of the largest in the nation ever. And the sad thing is that was a down payment to the size of the problem. That represented 205 search warrants executed over 10 days. But there are over 500 of these operations in the high desert. So we still got a lot more work to do, and we're going to have to do it all over again. We tore up everything outside. What did the crooks do? They went indoors. They bought our tract homes. They gutted tract homes, brand new homes, and gutted them to do grows. Took over warehouses, all kinds of things. So we're trying to stay a step ahead of them, and it's a challenge, particularly when we don't have the resources. But we've enlisted the support. The federal government, our good friend Mike Garcia, who represents the high desert area, has been very, very cooperative with us, working to find ways to fund our operation with the DEA. And that's we were joined also by the sheriffs from all the surrounding counties. And that was over 500 cops working for 2 weeks, nonstop. And the second week it was 110-degree heat in rattlesnakes and scorpions. All kinds of firearm seized. It was quite an event. But it was done at the same time as that was going on. We had, where's Lieutenant Diedrich? I know he's back, there he is. He was doing something entirely different in a decidedly cooler climate in Venice Beach. We'll talk about that later on tonight. But the fact we had to do both things at the same time illustrates just the depth of the challenges we face here in LA County. Trying to keep the community safe, keep the community engaged. This is my 91st town hall since I've taken office. And I want to thank the good Reverend and the organizer of this church for allowing us to use this facility. This is amazing. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. And we've been in some very tiny places, and this one, plus they even have air conditioning. Oh my God, we're not used to this. We're gonna get spoiled. You see me sit down periodically, is the good Lord gave me 2 knees, but the mileage ran out on both of them, so I gotta sit down now and then. We'll have a good conversation. We're gonna get a lot of questions. We'll try to answer as many as we can. And if it's a question that's very local, and guess who we're going to throw under the bus? Oh, yeah. And at the end of the night, you get to rate your captain. All right? So we'll test out how he does on our scale. All right? And we'll let's see what we can do. Right now, my biggest challenge as sheriff is just money, really. I have a hiring freeze that is killing my ability to hire deputies that want to become deputy sheriffs from our communities. And I have a defunding effort that 3 out of the 5 supervisors support that is going to result in us being 2,208 positions short by April 1st. Our patrol stations are operating at 70% capacity. That means 30% of the workforce is not there. And that's retirements, injuries, pandemic, everything combined, and that's why when you see deputies out there in the field, appreciate the fact that their hair is on fire and they're just chasing the radio and trying to get everything done with very few resources. And when they took positions away from us, 1,281 budgeted positions, they didn't take the work away. No, and actually the work increased, but there's just less people to do the work. So you folks can do the math on that, the impact that has on you. So the deputies are doing their best, and they have body-worn cameras now. So when we have a complaint, we get to go to the tape. Let's see what happened. And it is working. It's working exactly the way we planned. Overwhelming majority of the times, the deputies are doing the right thing. A couple of times they're not. They could do better, but not bad. And occasionally when they do bad things, they're held accountable. It's just simple equation. We have a high standard. We're going to continue to maintain that high standard. And what that allows us to do is attract people, because people are attracted to quality. They're attracted to integrity. They're attracted to reputation of organization they want to affiliate themselves with. And we have that. I have a dedicated group of activists that are pretty well paid to try to denounce the department, call us gang members, call us killers, murderers. We're doing all these terrible things under the sun, but yet when we go to the tape, crickets. Nothing supports it. So it's a big game. And bottom line is, I think we're on the right path. We have a lot of challenges, 3 big ones, and we know what they are. Violent crime. From 2019 to 2021, homicides increased 94% in LA County. Huge problem. Homelessness increased more than 100% from 2011 to 2021. More than 100% increase in homelessness. The county and the city spent $6.5 billion on homelessness, yet the problem doubled. I'd call it a classical problem, right? Did anyone who was responsible for this stop and say, Houston, we got a problem? Nope. What was the reply? Let's continue doing the same thing and hope for a different answer. Einstein called that insanity a long time ago. Yet the county and the city, they're fervent practitioners of that level of insanity. They pride themselves on it. Even the governor jumped in the fray. He said, well, we'll just throw $12 billion down the same rabbit hole the other $6.5 billion went, but we'll have strict measures of accountability. Don't you feel so much better for that? What does that mean? Absolutely nothing, because they're going to do the exact same thing where all the other money went. So accountability means nothing when we don't have more capacity to treat those with mental illness, more capacity to treat those with substance abuse. In other words, shelter space. We need beds. Don't give me promises, give me beds. That way we can get the homeless off the streets and into the care they need. And for the designated few who are just making a lifestyle because they really like to smoke dope 24/7, take it home, away from here, right? But we'll have a chance to talk a lot about that and all the good things that are happening. So let's get the show on the road. Let's start with some questions. Oh, I'm going in and out here.
All right, so the first question is, what is current crime rate in Hacienda Heights compared to the past 2 years?
I think that's got the captain written all over it, doesn't it?
Okay, going back to 2019, we were down just over 3% in our crime rate. 2020, down 11%, moving in the right direction. 2021, we went up to 1.67. As you saw, the rest of the county face a lot of crime issues. As I mentioned earlier, we're now year to date down 30%. So again, attributed to the hard work of the men and women of Industry Station, the work that we do with all of you, and these foundations that are helping us get our message out to the Asian community members in Hacienda Heights. Foundations like Together Against Crime Foundation to help us get our message out, to help us educate our Asian crime citizens in the area, to help us build that trust and respect so they do call us, they do use us. Our friends from the Shilai Temple, the same thing, getting our message out, helping us to do that. And Mr. Kenny Chang helping us with our business councils and the businessmen in the area to do exactly the same thing. That is why our crime rates are low. It's a teamwork, it's team effort, and thank you for all that you do.
I'll say ditto.
Can you give us a breakdown of numbers when it comes to homicides, robberies, burglaries, and domestic violence in our area?
Well, I can tell you this. Countywide, it was 94% for homicide. For grand theft auto, it was 60%. Now, the other numbers get a little strange because we're dealing with pandemic-related issues. When everything shut down and everybody was at home, there were no residential burglaries. Crooks know that there's people in the home, can't rip it off. But as soon as we saw businesses opening again, what started climbing up? Residential burglaries. They figured out people are no longer home. Same thing with businesses. The businesses are closed, there's really nothing to rob, there's no one there. So the pandemic changed a lot of things. Grand theft auto, 60%. Those are huge numbers, by the way. We're talking tens of thousands. What was the difference? Everyone, every household, how many vehicles you have, how many were parked in front of your house, around the block, because there was no left to park them. Your garage is full of a bunch of stuff that are not vehicles, so you're on the driveway. See how you're actually facilitating a lot of these things with our habits? And the crooks know that too. And a car that is not being watched and is not attached to a house eventually gets ripped off. And this is just the dynamics are pandemic related. As now we're shifting from pandemic to endemic, some of these patterns are going to start reasserting their normal year-to-year march. We can expect that. And also, during the pandemic, when everybody was at home, it was more difficult to engage in domestic violence, sexual assaults, because there are a lot more witnesses. Those numbers were relatively low. Other numbers started creeping up. Assault with a deadly weapon were up substantially. And obviously the homicides. But the homicides overall is a small number in comparison to like grand theft auto, which is tens of thousands. So just something to be aware of. And when you go to a smaller piece of the pie, like industry stations, patrol areas, it's even smaller. So your numbers on crimes that are small in number, but the most heinous of all, homicide, those ones are going to go up and down. If you have one or two, it's 100% or 200% increase, but the numbers are very tiny. So the numbers to pay attention, their significance, are your property crimes, which will be in the hundreds. And you can draw more statistical inference from that than you can from the crimes the numbers are so small you really can't draw that.
Is crime up since Motel 6 changed to homeless housing? How has it helped or hurt the community?
Well, from what I've read, and I have a book here that says the county bought the facility, but the impact, we haven't really seen it in reported crimes. I know some concerns we've seen throughout the county when you have Operation Room Key facilities that has been relatively bad. And I'll give you a classic example. In Venice, a bridge home, the councilman sold it with a song and a dance to the residents. They objected to it, and all of their worst nightmares came true because the entire facility became surrounded with homeless encampments and pop-up tents, and drug use, and prostitution, and fires, and assaults, and all of the mayhem associated with that came true there. But comparing that to the operation here with the Motel 6, it was actually relatively the opposite, where there really wasn't any visible problems with it. So that, I guess, is a plus in our book.
And just to add, if I may, sure, he's 100% right. When the Motel 6 first kicked over, we had a little bit of issues, but we addressed it. We built the relationships with the management there, and there's been a decrease in crime in and around that area. Our patrol knows to take care of the Denny's, the gas station, all the areas around there, and they frequent that area, and we're constantly monitoring that. What is being done to address RVs parked behind the dollar store? This looks like potential encampment development. I believe it's off of our Shady Bend Street.
That's another Captain Obvious one. Go ahead.
All right, we've been working with Public Works over there, the county SAO teams, our town sheriffs. That's a high priority for them. They've been over there doing great work. They've worked with, as I said, the Public Works to get no parking signs, so they cannot park the vehicles from 10 p.m. at night to 6 in the morning. So they gave us a little bit of teeth to help take care of that problem. They've done operations over there with LASA, and then Union Station to go offer services to the folks over there. Some take the services, some don't, which becomes problematic. They're working with Public Works to get red curb lines put in different areas, not just there, throughout Hacienda Heights, because I know the RV issue has come up several times, and we are working towards it. We know that it is a problem, and it's somewhat of a nuisance to the neighborhood, and we want to address it, and we're using a bunch of different methods to do that.
I think this would be an appropriate time to throw our favorite lieutenant under the bus. That'd be Lieutenant Jeff Diedrich, to talk about our homeless outreach service team and their interface with the RV situation. Let's give a round of applause to Jeff.
Well, thank you, Sheriff. This place is beautiful. I've worked here, how long has it been here? Pastor, how long has this church been here? Beautiful. Thank you for having us. So as the sheriff and the captain spoke about, I'm Jeff Diedrich from the LA County Sheriff's host team. So what is that? It's the Homeless Outreach Services team. And I'm proud here because this is where I started my patrol career, working at Industry Station under my watch commander, under Sheriff Murakami. And so to some of us, this is a homecoming, and we're proud of the community that we serve. And so I'll address firstly the question that was asked about Shady Bend. The lights are pretty bright, but see that Deputy Sanchez, can you raise your hand? So tonight you have 5 members from your East Division host team, and that's Deputy Sanchez, Deputy Bray, Deputy Chris Lewis, Deputy George Vine, can't see, Pancharello, Deputy Eric Nava, Sergeant Copes, and Deputy Sierra Martinez. Let's give them a round, because these are the deputies. Those are the deputies on your host team assigned to this area. And those are the ones working with your deputies here at Industry Station to address the RV issue on Shady Bend. Because 3 months ago, the sheriff turned to us and said, the RV issue is becoming quite complex. It's becoming rampant throughout the county. We need to internally look at strategies and policies to address vehicular homelessness because of its impact with the community. Just after the Board of Supervisors put forth a motion to look at best practices also. So the deputies that you're seeing right here are actually deploying on Thursday to address that issue with your team. So what do we bring to the table? What is HOST? HOST was created back in 2017, and it was the first team of its kind. It's a co-response model where you take civilian homeless outreach workers and partner them with deputy sheriffs. Then you take these deputy sheriffs who are the best of the best, have worked an extensive work history throughout the department, and they receive special training. And that special training was created by, we're lucky to have him here tonight, Dr. Pietro D'Angelo is sitting in the back trying to hide. Stand up, Piero. What he developed was a crisis stabilization class. And some people call it de-escalation, but we like to use crisis stabilization because I'd rather be stable than de-escalated. That's supposed to be a joke, but I blew it. But what it did was it empowered deputy sheriffs to be able to address things in real time with training that, I'm a 31-year veteran, we never had training like this. This training is amazing. And standing before you today, I can tell you that the host team has interacted with tens of thousands of people experiencing homelessness, probably around 70,000. And to date, we have never made one arrest or used force to accomplish our mission. If the story was that simple, but it gets even better. When Sheriff Villanueva came into office and he met with us and he asked us what the current lay of the land was, and we just spoke about it, he asked why our mental health teams were in another bureau and why we weren't together. And we kind of looked and said, that's the question we've been asking. Well, when we walked out of that meeting, the MET team had been transferred to our bureau, and now we work as a partnership. And so today, the LA County Sheriff's host team works in concert with, I think you'll be hearing from my partner, Lieutenant Breeze, later, with our mental evaluation teams. And that's a big, big, big plus, because quite often those in the community that present in crisis, if you need to make a phone call or if you need to schedule an appointment, you're too late. By them being with us in the moment, it stops a lot of those issues from escalating, and it also gets somebody the help that they need. And as you'll hear later on, is there needs to be a discussion in LA County about mental health, because right now that's our significant need. It's not there. We need more of it. And the deputy sheriffs that are working the streets day in and day out, their burden has been put on them, and we need to fix that. So let's get back to what the host team does. So we take these specialized teams, and our purview is we are obligated to address any homeless encampment where there's 5 or more people. And so imagine what happened to us on day one of the pandemic, March 14th, 2019, excuse me. This team deployed in LA County from all 4 corners, 5 days a week, every single day, not one day off other than the weekends, contacting people experiencing homelessness and homeless encampments to ensure, 1, the knowledge of the pandemic, and then 2, to try to prevent that spread. And as you saw, the numbers were minuscule, but these deputies didn't take a day off. Every single day they were out there. And so the professionalism and their dedication and their commitment to the communities that they serve, while we hear a lot of negativity that we talk about, these are the best of the best, and this is what's holding it together. So here in Hacienda Heights, Thursday, after we address on Shady Bend, we're going to be going out with our off-road vehicles out in Turnbull Canyon area. I think there might even be a question about that later on. So we work closely with the station personnel, and what we do is we do our 5-step process. And that's identification, assessment, outreach, posting, and then cleanup. Using this 5-step process, every single homeless encampment that our team has addressed in the last 8 years has been 100% cleaned up. Every single one. This is for you. This is your team. It's for this community. These deputies that are here today are specifically assigned to the East Patrol Division, which Industry Station is part of it, because we know that quite often this issue crosses, right? You have Industry Station border, then Rowland Heights and other things. In some of the areas in the riverbed, the model that people go from one to the other. So this team is the boots on the ground. And I think it's important for you to know that you have this. Any single person in the community can trigger the homeless encampment protocol. A phone call to Industry Station saying there's 5 or more people here, it automatically becomes ours. And this model is the model for the country. Those who have asked, how does this work? How have you been so successful? It's because 1, the quality of the people, 2, the leadership of the sheriff. Oh, because I forgot to tell you, our team is only funded for 4 deputy sheriffs. 4 for the entire county. I just introduced you to 6 or 7 of them. When the sheriff took office, he gave us an additional 22 deputies to make our team 26. And without that, we would just have to give up because we can't address it. And so our model works. It's shown to work. It's important that the community knows that we are here for you. And I'll address a question somebody asked me earlier. Well, while we were in Venice, what happened with our community? We were still here. What we did is we took a very small portion of the deputies that the sheriff gave us that went to Venice, but his issue to us was not one single area in our jurisdiction goes untouched while we're there. And so you had deputies in Turnbull Canyon and in the riverbeds and the washes while part of the team was in Venice here the entire time. And we work with our local station to make sure that we have that connectivity. but you have Chris Lewis and Eric Nava are you're going to start hearing about them more. They're two featured deputies who are paid for by the Department of Mental Health. Having that in law enforcement was a groundbreaker. And those of you who are monitoring this topic right now in the California State Legislature, there was a bill that was just passed out of committee by Republicans and Democrats. It was a multi-partisan bill, or wait, anti-partisan bill, to do this model. Bipartisan, there you go. To do this model. Law enforcement with mental health, with a DHS worker to connect people to services. This is what works. Those who are paying attention, the only way out of this is this, because if you don't have safety and security, and I won't get into all that, but if you don't have safety and security, your community is going to sink. It's not going to thrive. And if you have a homeless encampment next to your house that's making your family feel like prisoners in their own home where you can't go to the stores and you can't go shopping, you're not thriving. So not only are the people in the encampment falling apart and degrading and dying on the streets, now the community is doing the same. And so a team like ours handles both. And that's why we say we're apolitical. We don't have an agenda other than helping you, helping the community, helping the person. And so as long as we stay that way and not divided, our system can work. There's two... And I'll close with this, we don't always get enough time with the community, is one, I've never in my 31 years seen an elected official do this many town halls and come and stand here and take the questions and take those things, but this is how the system's supposed to work, so I'll finish with this. When I was outside, somebody asked me, they said, what is reimagining? How does it work for you guys? And so I kind of thought about it for a second. I asked them what they mean with reimagining law enforcement. And I said, a lot of us have been conditioned to think that the status quo with homeless encampments and people dying in the streets is okay, and it's not. And so if we're going to talk about reimagining, I question whose imagination are we using? Because it's not yours, it's not mine. Because if it's a horror novel, I don't want to use that, or I don't want to use that imagination. I want to use one of California is this beautiful place. And so we need to embrace and be strong for each other, because you can have public safety, civility, and accountability with compassion too. We can do both. So don't let someone tell you that we can't, because you have it and it's for your community. Thank you.
The host team has been a godsend for us here at Industry Station. The relationship between our service area officers and the host teams, it's incredible. A lot of the fellows that are on the host team has worked here in the past, so it's a tight relationship that's just been working incredibly well. Thank you, sir. All right, next question, sir, is what is the outlook on gang activity compared to past years?
Good question. Right now, with the current occupant in the office of the district attorney, the outlook is pretty bleak, because this individual has decided since the day he took office that he was not going to use gang enhancements. And he was not going to use gun enhancements. He was not going to use multiple victim enhancements or trying juveniles or adults when they commit adult-type crimes. And he was not going to seek the death penalty. He was he barred his deputy district attorneys from attending parole hearings. So the victims of crimes were all by themselves in parole hearings, trying to advocate to keep the one who terrorized their family locked up. And they had no one to support them. So I took it upon myself to tell my detectives, don't let them stand alone, stand with them. So our detectives now represent the victims in parole hearings. Only problem with it, though, we only have roughly a third of the victims. Another third is LAPD, and the other third is roughly all the other police departments in the county. So I've offered that invitation to the other chiefs of police to step up to the plate and represent their victims as well. But They're not elected, they're appointed, and they do not have the same freedom of speech that I enjoy because it comes from you. You're my boss. I speak directly and I report directly to the citizens of LA County, and there's no one in between us telling me how to do my job. My challenge is just figuring out what 10 million people want and distill it to a one path moving forward. And I think we're there, but in terms of gang activity, that is our biggest impediment right now. Directly as a result of George Gascon's special orders, we're now seeing evidence that organized crime is recruiting youthful offenders to pull triggers, to pull jobs, or as I say, to put in the work, because they know the consequences are minimal. But you also have the Board of Supervisors and the state legislature and the governor. They got rid of the California Youth Authority. They created some other entity, and that entity is being eliminated. And then the Board of Supervisors decided to eliminate our probation halls, juvie halls. They're being eliminated. So now you have camps trying to be retrofitted to deal with the secure detention of juveniles who are in custody for murder, rape, robbery, the big ones. And they're losing that. So imagine home detention for homicide. Wrap your mind around that one. Yes. So they have no plan B at all. None. And I know what plan B is going to be. They're going to come up with a victim homicide suspect who's going to be 17 years and a half, not eligible for anywhere, and there's nowhere to put him. What they're going to do is they're going to come knocking on my door and say, hey, can we have him remanded to your custody? But all along, all of these geniuses decided to dismantle the entire system that was designed to keep people, juveniles that commit adult-like crimes, in a secure place of confinement that is not the county jail. So they're eliminating all the options. The state's eliminating all the options. That doesn't mean that the kids are somehow becoming better. I have a DA who insists that kids' brains are not fully developed to the age of 25. Literally, he's saying that. And he insists that the data and the science support him. They don't. Why? How developed is a kid's brain at the age of 18? Age of 17 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks. How developed it was for a gentleman to take a 10-year-old girl in a Denny's restaurant and sexually assault her, just weeks shy of his 18th birthday. To then get arrested 9 years later, and as soon as the handcuffs came on, he became she, but never a day before. And that person is now being detained as a juvenile. This is some scary stuff. And when we have lack of accountability, people understand. People that are engaged in criminal activity, we're not talking a 3-year-old. We're not talking a 7-year-old. We're talking about kids who are just weeks away from signing up with Uncle Sam, grab a rifle, and shoot somebody. How developed do you think their brain is at the age of 17? I'm going to guess they're 90+% of the way there, probably close to 100%. So when people say, oh, they're not fully developed to the age of 25, I say they're developed enough when they can tell right from wrong. It's as simple as that. In fact, we even have an admonition, a Gladys R admonition, when they're just going from 13 to 14, where if they're detained, being accused of a crime, we ask them if they understand right from wrong and all these things. And we have this admonition. And based on that, we move forward. And that evidence, the DA uses it. But now they're saying we're going to do a Gladys R admonition on a 22-year-old? Really? Because his brain wasn't fully developed? No, that makes me sick. So I'd like to have better news on this front. Unfortunately, Captain, we need I need a DA that's just going to follow the law. The legislator writes the law. I expect the DA and the sheriff to enforce the law. Me on the investigative end, on the handcuff end of it, and the D on the prosecutorial end of the business. And between the two, justice is supposed to be served. I already have a public defender. I don't need two public defenders. I need a district attorney and a public defender. I need someone to advocate to the best of the ability on behalf of someone who's being detained, is being tried for a crime, be it a juvenile, be it an adult. And I want them to have a full defense with all the evidence and everything that can assist them in defending their case. But at the end of the day, if the evidence is there, I want that person convicted. I want that person to be held accountable for what they did to the fullest extent of the law. It's a simple idea.
Sir, what is being done to keep drug crime down? How does the LASD work with the Board of Supervisors to address mental illness, drug addiction, open drug areas, and eliminate this across the county?
Good question. Let's take one piece of that question, and we're going to throw another lieutenant under the bus. Lieutenant Bree is here from our mental evaluation teams. Let's hear it for her.
Good evening. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Captain. And thank you, Pastor, for having us. And thank you, Hacienda Heights. Wow, this is such an awesome outturn. Thank you for having us here tonight, for being concerned about what's happening in your communities and wanting to hear what we have to say about the Sheriff's Department. Who in the audience has heard of MET? I see one hand. No one else? 2 hands. Anyone else? 3 hands. MET stands for Mental Evaluation Team. And what that is a highly specialized, highly trained unit that pairs a deputy sheriff and a mental health worker. You heard my partner, Lieutenant Diedrich, mention co-response. MET is co-response. We've been around for 29 years. We started off with just 5 teams countywide, and now I'm happy to say we're at 34 teams countywide. Still not enough. We are still very underfunded. As the sheriff has mentioned, so many of our specialized units and department is underfunded, and so is MET. This is how MET responds. We do not wear a typical police uniform. We do not do typical police work. The work that MET does is all about compassion and respect. Compassion and respect to the people that are in crisis that we're being called to assist our partners with. Compassion and respect to family members that have to make that difficult decision to call the police to come to their home to deal with the family member that's in crisis. I can't imagine how difficult that must be. Our deputies on MET receive over 730 hours of specialized training. And as Lieutenant Diedrich pointed out, one of our wonderful training personnel assigned to our mental evaluation is Dr. D'Angelo in the back room. We're very lucky to have him. Not only are our MET deputies highly trained, but we provide specialized training to our own department members and to first responders nationwide. They come to us to see how things are being done here at the Sheriff's Department. I'm going to share one of thousands of stories similar to this that our MET teams respond to. Approximately 3 weeks ago, our team was requested to assist a team with Department of Mental Health. Besides our partners, it was a specialized team that deals with very difficult to treat patients. They asked us to help with a gentleman who has, I wouldn't say he's homeless, but family. He'll live with family and then he'll disappear for a short period of time. He'll show up at different parts of the county. His wife at the time had been in contact with our Department of Mental Health partners, and she was requesting help. The specialized team had been trying to help him for over 2 years, and they were unable because the times that they did make contact with him, he was extremely violent and uncooperative, and it wasn't safe for them to go out with him. So I mentioned compassion and respect. Our MET team went out to help this individual to see what we could do. And let me tell you, when we first got there, he was not having any of it. He was upset that we were there. He threatened. He said he was going to file all kinds of complaints against us and called us every name in the book. But we stayed there. We introduced ourselves to them. We told him we were there to help him. And over about an hour and a half or so, we let him smoke a cigarette. He wanted to just smoke a cigarette, and then he agreed to go with us. This man was 72 years old. He had come here from another country over 40 years ago and had difficult time receiving the mental health treatment that he needed and was not taking his medication. The team that went out with us that day comprised of a psychiatrist, 2 emergency psychiatric nurses, 4 social workers, and then our MET team. And there was about 5 deputies, 2 sergeants, myself, and I think that was about it. We were able to get this gentleman, without using force, to voluntarily get on that gurney and get the much-needed medical attention and mental health treatment that he needed. Had it not been for us being in constant communication with his wife and other family members, it would have made the situation a lot different. After the incident was over, we debriefed it as a team, and the Department of Mental Health specialized team that was there told us, had we not helped them, this gentleman would have died on the street. So what HOST and what MET are doing truly saves lives. This is also leading me into a special program to mention to you that our sheriff has actually started, very important to him, and it's called Special Alert. Special Alert is a voluntary program where you as family members and loved ones can provide information to our department at the local sheriff's station, giving us information if they're diagnosed or believed to have any type of medical, mental, or intellectual diagnosis. Any issues with any of those things, they can do that. There is a table in the back with a copy of these forms. If, God forbid, one day you have to call us to have us respond to your home to help in one of these crises, if you provide this information beforehand and take it to your local sheriff's station, that information is put into the database so that if your address comes up, all of the information that you've provided also comes up. I mention this right now because had it not been the information and the collaboration that we had with family members and with the wife of this patient that we helped, it would not have gone as well. Thank you.
Let me add a little more backdrop to the Special Alert Program, why it's so vital. Because in the past, deputies who were assigned a call of, say, someone's destroying his house, no other information. Get there, figure out what happened, and stick their face in the door and someone throws a TV at them. That's a problem, right? Deputies have to figure it out on the spot, how to calm the situation down without getting killed themselves and render the aid to the person. But with the Special Alert, we load that information into the 911 system. So when you call from that house, 911, the information pops up automatically that there's a 25-year-old male, white, 6'2", 300 pounds, who is on the autism spectrum, on the low end, maybe have a mental capacity of a 3-year-old, maybe nonverbal. So that television set being thrown at you by that individual takes on a whole new different meaning than someone is just out to kill you because they hate cops and they're having a bad day. See the difference between the two? And that empowers the deputies. So when the deputies are rolling to the call, that information is voiced. The supervisor in the field has to go with the deputies to the call. Our mental evaluation team has to respond as well and acknowledge the call. So everyone is rolling there. The deputies who have the handle all their other calls for service are taken off their computer, so they only have one call, that call. So they're not in a hurry. We're slowing down the clock. We're increasing the odds of a positive outcome. And then the sergeant, the watch sergeant who works at the desk or the station, has to go to dispatch to ensure all these things happen. So it has a lot of responsibilities for everyone, but the ultimate goal is a positive outcome where the person is having could have an episode where they're not taking medications, or it's just one of those bad behavioral swings that are uncontrollable, and the person doesn't have any responsibility over what they're doing. But armed with that information, you can see the huge difference it makes in the case. And this is all about saving lives and making it safer for the deputies as well, so they're not harmed in the process. So this is a big step forward, and it was a very low-tech solution, literally. It's a card. That's all it is. The CAD system is 1970s technology, our system, yes. We have probably the oldest still in existence. Is based on 64-bit punch cards. For those of you old enough to remember those days, that system is still in existence in our 911 system. We've not had the funds to replace it with a new generation, but we can use some of that to fill in those fields, and that's populated in there, so when you call from that house, all that information pops up, and we share it with the deputies in the field. So it works real good.
The MET teams are another invaluable tool for us here at Industry Station. We have a great relationship with them as well, and we're looking forward to them finally moving in across the street. That's where they're going to be housed, right there across the street from Industry Station. So that'll even make the relationship stronger, and also get, hopefully, my deputies more mental health training because they're right there. So we're looking forward to them moving in. All right, sir, how can we in the community get involved to fix the problems Prop 47 has caused?
Good one. There's an effort in Sacramento to undo Prop 47 or to modify it. Some of the restrictions, unfortunately, involve putting another ballot measure. Because when you have a ballot measure that's approved by the voters, the only ones who can undo it is the same voters. But if you look at the title of Prop 47, didn't they promise you the stars and the moon and everything, all the nice stuff? It has this warm and fuzzy title, you know, improving public safety for California, and it does the exact opposite. Just like Measure J, reimagine public safety. You're thinking of rainbows, ukuleles, you know, puppies, apple pie, and all that. You read the fine print, oh yeah, we're going to defund the sheriff's department. But you didn't know that. That's how a lot of these propositions pass. Props 47, Props 57, AB 109, prison realignment. Yeah, we screwed it up at the state level, so let's kick the whole problem down to the county. Then the county takes some money from the state, and let's not give it to the sheriff. Let's just hold on to it ourselves. So the sheriff is stuck with aging facilities and no programming capacity for people that should be in state prison. And the county jails were not built for long-term stay. Hence, you can understand why we have some struggles here at the county level. So how do we fix the mess of Prop 47? Well, let's see what the legislature comes up with. There's a battle now, there's a bipartisan effort from moderates and Republicans to get a different version of 47 to undo the damage. And let's see what comes of that, all right? And unfortunately, that one's going to require a state-level fix out of our means. We're the executive branch of government, not the legislative branch. So let's keep our fingers crossed. But I do encourage you, call your state senator, your assembly person. If you don't know who that person is, that's part of the problem, right there. You have to be engaged. You have to be informed. You have to hold your elected officials, that includes me, accountable. Get the job done. Thank you.
All right, sir, with crimes getting worse everywhere, what can we do to protect ourselves and our homes?
Oh, there's a long laundry list of things we can do, but I'll give you some obvious ones that'll help you. One is don't put valuables in your vehicles. There's only one reason you should put valuables in your vehicles. Hopefully you're in the vehicle and you're moving it to somewhere else. But if you leave the valuable in your vehicle, you're only asking for someone to break your window and take your stuff, right? So your purses, your laptops, your cameras, your iPads, your cell phones, all those, when you go to the high-end shopping and all those bags with all that good stuff in it, why on earth are you going to leave it visible? People are going to go check it out. You have those next door neighbor apps, right, on your cell phone that tells you all the scandalous things that are happening. And what is the number one activity? I know this man is laughing over here because he knows exactly what it is. Strange person going through vehicles, right, is the number one activity caught on these ring door things. So do not create the problem. And also lock the darn thing. Here's another thought. How about have a garage where you can put cars in a garage? I know it's a far out concept, but at one point in time when they built your house, I'm pretty sure they built space to put cars in the garage. So garage sale, they have this whole moving industry now where they'll drop off this container where you can park the contents of your garage somewhere else so you can put the car in the garage the way it was designed. This all helps. Lighting helps. Especially with the crews that are out there trying to rip off the catalytic converters. I know industry walnut, they've done etching on the catalytic converters. Do that, okay? Have a ring door installed. You have these cheap things out of Costco. I think it's a 6-camera unit, runs for like $400, where you can install cameras outside. And those work. We catch a lot of crooks because of cameras. In fact, we've solved a lot of heinous crimes from cameras. And we had one where 2 deputies were assaulted in Compton. Remember that? They made national news. That incident actually changed the tenor of the presidential race. That was at one inflection point that changed the narrative from Black Lives Matter and all cops are bastard to I think we need to support law enforcement. And dozens of ring door camera video clips. We're able to follow the track of the suspect. So those things are very valuable. Okay? So get those. Here's something else you can do for your home. Lock your doors. I know some of these are dumb. You're saying, why on earth? But trust me, how many times do we take a report where they just walked right in? Windows. Secure them. Go to Home Depot or take one of those brooms, unscrew the broom end of it, and the wooden dowel on a track that feeds just about everything short of breaking the glass window. Once you put the dowel in the track, you can't open the window. Very low tech, right? About 5th century BC. Use it, okay? Here's another thing. Don't have the big open bay window, the nice flat screen TV and all the nice stuff so you can see it from the street. Because what you're doing is you're sharing that stuff with the crooks that drive by your street to see if it's worthwhile breaking into your home. Don't have your front door concealed from the street. Because all you're doing is providing room for the crook who's trying to break into your front door to be hidden from the street. When you go on that fancy vacation to Europe, don't brag about it on social media while you're in France. Because trust me, someone is going to get their hands on that social media and realize, we got a freebie here. Know your neighbors. That way, when you are in France, and maybe you made the mistake of bragging about, hey, you're in France having a good old time. So when the Ryder truck pulls up to empty the contents in your house, you at least have one neighbor that calls the police and say, hey, there's a Ryder truck, they're in France. And this is what Neighborhood Watch is all about, okay? How many, any deputy in this room has taken a report about a burglary suspect. We talked to the neighbors. Yeah, the car, they were there sitting in the cul-de-sac for about 3 hours. No one called. They called when they kicked the door in, alarm went off, and they ran away in about 2 minutes with all the goods. Wouldn't it have been nicer just to call when that car that does not belong in the neighborhood with the tough-looking individuals in it, they called then? That's what you pay the deputies that tough work to do, is to find out, hey, who are you and what's your business in our community? They'll ask that question. And if the would-be crooks have a good answer, well, they're not crooks. If they got a bad answer, well, their day is going to be a little different than they thought, right? So these are common sense things you can do for your home. Personal safety, especially now. Know your surroundings. If you go to a place that has a lot of people with high-end vehicles, high-end jewelry, and all this good stuff, pay attention to your surroundings when you get into your vehicle. If you see people hanging around that don't seem to belong, and it's not because of their race, their gender, or anything, but because they don't look like they're part of the activity that's going on there, and they're just loitering with no purpose that you can discern. They're there for a purpose. It's not for your safety. They're trying to figure out if you're going to be their next victim. Okay? So if you go to the Commerce Casino, you racked up about 10 or 20 G's, you're feeling good, you're going through the parking lot, trust me, there's someone who's checking out what car you're getting into, and they want to follow you home to relieve you of the burden of all your winnings. If you think someone's following you home, where's the last place you go? Home. Where's the first place you go? Sheriff's station. Police department, if you can't find a sheriff's station, that's fine. No, I joke, but police departments, they're an important part of the equation. We're just the 911 system for the police. But yes, go to your local law enforcement agency. Do not go home. Trust me, they will not follow you there. Okay? Don't run out of gas at midnight. How many people do that? Don't go to the ATM at 10 o'clock at night and there's a kid on a BMX bike 10 feet away. What do you think that person is doing there? They're waiting for you to see how dumb you are. Pass it. Use a card. Go home. Right? These are common sense things. You laugh, but people do them again and again. Okay? Online. Government at all levels does no business over the phone. The call you got from the Department of Energy Savings, yeah, we all got it. I get it at least twice a week. Doesn't exist. Nothing on the phone exists. When the government wants you, they're going to do two ways. They're going to send you a first-class letter, official-looking letter, government agency, Social Security Administration, with all your information. It could be the courts. And if you get a letter from the courts, you know what you did, why you have some business to do with a court. You'll get that. And the other way, in the IRS, of course, if you get a letter from the IRS after April 15th, you should start sweating, yes. But the only other way is when we knock on your door at about 4 in the morning, there's about 6 radio cars, and you'll hear a boom, boom, Sheriff's Department, search warrant. That's us, yes. If you have a doubt, feel free to call your local Sheriff's Department, and we'll verify it for you, all right? But we don't do business on the computer. If you get a text message, we don't text either. Anything that has anything attached to it, never open it up. Your bank never calls you to reset your password. However, crooks will send out 1,000 of these scams to see if they can find 3 fools that falls for it. Empties out their account. If you want to invest in cryptocurrency, you think you know what you're doing? You don't. The crooks have been there way before you, and they're just waiting for you to show up with all your life savings. So just be smart. That's all I'm asking. ask questions, verify through different means. And you know, if anybody contacts you from a bank, you know what your bank are. You contact your bank through your normal means and verify it. And you'll spot the scams right away, the phishing scams. And every time they have a new scam, they're inventing new ones as the current ones get caught. And it's just a game, we got to stay one step ahead of them. So you have to stay one step ahead of them. And when you have relatives, they're getting into the third stage of life, and this is the scary part, they have all the money. Where do you think the crooks are going to go? So home care services, all these things involve power of attorneys, elderly abuse, elderly financial abuse, any type of fiduciary relationship that can be abused. It could be a loved one, could be a stranger, could be a caregiver. Oh, she worked for the family for 20 years. And then she inherited everything and walked away laughing because we didn't pay attention. And that person had access to every single thing. They drain out the bank accounts, and by the time the family figures it out, it's too late. They're in the Bahamas, and you're broke. Okay? So you got to pay attention. Our most vulnerable are our senior citizens who are pushing the age where they really can't do transactions financially by themselves. They rely on somebody else. First vulnerability. So make sure, especially your parents, they age out of handling their own financial affairs, that it's a smooth transition and is safely and secured for their well-being, how they want it to happen. Okay? And these are just some of the basic stuff that you can do to keep yourself safe.
This next question, sirs, I think you answered it already, but I'll throw it at you. Are there plans to include mental health workers to join deputies to help with mentally ill and remove violent persons from the street?
Yes, next question. Shortest answer in history.
How much did the defund police campaign hurt us and put us in this situation in California?
For the Sheriff's Department, we had 4 of the 5 supervisors actively engaged in the defund the Sheriff's Department. They put Measure J on the ballot, and Measure J was a defund of the Sheriff's Department. They talked about net county costs, and they tried to sell the idea that, oh no, this is not for the sheriff. It doesn't target the sheriff. It just targets net county cost. And of course, we consume about 60% of net county cost. So now we're at 8.9% of the county's overall budget is the Sheriff's Department budget. But 5 years ago, it was 11.85%. So we're just sliding down as our need for resources, your need for resources, keeps getting bigger. The county budget is getting bigger. We're going nowhere. Come April 1st, I'm going to be in the hole 2,208 positions. 1,281 of them, the board voted to remove those budgeted positions from my budget. And then, come April 1st, I'll be short 927 sworn deputies. That is a huge amount of people missing in action. The job did not get smaller. So when they took away the budgeted positions, they were actively defunding the department. You ask a supervisor, oh no, we didn't do that. We increased his budget. He went from 3.55 to 3.61 or something like that. What we do, and our costs increased 3 times that. That's still defunding. I made a simple bargain with the Board of Supervisors, and I'm going to hold them to this. I need the hiring freeze lifted. Yes, they have frozen our ability to hire. I need that lifted. I need them to restore our budget to 10% of the county's overall budget and keep it there. Simple proposition, 2 points to it. So everyone who's going to occupy the position of supervisor wants to, ask them those 2 questions. You want to hear 2 yeses. If you can't get 2 yeses out of it, find somebody else. Thank you.
How can we get better police enforcement for the residents on Turnbull Canyon Road between Blue Sky and Skyline who suffer with constant street racing every night?
I think that's got the captain written all over it, right?
If I may, there's a couple other questions that are very similar to that. I'll read those as well and answer them all. Why won't the police force tow away the fully illegal modified cars that are racing on Turnbull instead of pulling them over and giving them a warning every time? One more, what can or is being done about the racing and speeding on Turnbull? As of now, the last several months, we've done a couple different operations out there with our service area teams. We plan on doing more. We have motor officers out there. We're going to incorporate the highway patrol. That's a tough area to battle that problem, but we're throwing every resource I can from the station up there. We know it's an issue. It's not only a nuisance, it's very dangerous. So we're doing what we can to get up there. We've cited many people up there, and a lot of the problems are the violations they're committing are only citable. And we're having problems towing cars up there because we have no legitimate reason to do so. So there's frustration with the community. If there's an arrest that needs to be made, we will make it. If the car needs to get towed and we have legitimate reasons to tow that car, we will do so. We're just trying to find all the different avenues to best conquer this problem up there. But it is a priority for us. Our service area teams are up there all the time, and we're going to be up there even more frequent to try and put an end to this issue. Where on your priority list does the enforcement of citing those involved with illegal fireworks stand?
Ooh, tough one. Well, I can tell you this, on the enforcement side of making arrests and seizing them, we're doing that. The scary thing is every single year, the nature of the fireworks keeps increasing. The explosive content, the formulas used, the sophistication of fireworks. I mean, what they're throwing out there today versus what was available in 1995 is like night and day. Back in those days, M80s were the big boom. Now you got full-blown professional level artillery mortars being lobbed up in just residential neighborhoods. I mean, I've been to East LA and it looks like a war zone on 4th of July as soon as the sun sets. You go to any high overlooking area throughout the basin and the whole skyline is just littered with these illegal fireworks. We have professional shows. Pasadena is one right there, the Rose Bowl. There's one, I think, in Long Beach at the pier, another one Santa Monica. There's a couple of places for it. I think Cerritos does one. But here in areas that are right next to wildland interfaces, fireworks are extremely dangerous. My city, La Habra Heights, they're prohibited, and we still have idiots out there trying to launch these things. And they're dry tinder brush. I mean, one spark and all the hillsides are gone. From Colima going all the way east, and then Colima going west too. And so that's always a big threat. And they talk about the safe and sane fireworks, which some cities sell. And the whole difference between safe and sane fireworks is they don't launch anything. They're sparklers, they do this, but it's all stationary. The stuff that's illegal, the bottle rocket launchers, everything that can be launched and goes somewhere. And obviously all the mortars are the high stuff. And we keep seizing this stuff, and every year when we seize it, it gets bigger and bigger. And we've had, I think it was back east, I don't know if it was Colton or somewhere, where 3 houses were leveled, vaporized, and it was illegal fireworks that blew up. This was in a residential community. So if you see something, say something. Particularly around June, all of a sudden the U-Haul trucks start pulling up and boxes are being loaded up into a house. Your neighbor does not have a legal warehouse going. They're selling fireworks. That's the only reason why that happens. So pay attention to it, because this could involve your safety. Goes up, it doesn't take just the house with the idiots in it, it takes all the neighborhood with it.
Here at the station, we try to do a lot of preventative measures prior to the big days, July 4th, New Year's Eve. We do sting operations to try and buy illegal fireworks to try and lessen the amount that are out there on the street. We go and we contact the houses that we've had issues with the prior years and forewarn them that they'll be watched. And that's been fairly effective, knowing that we're watching them. They tone it down. So there's a lot of things going on the front end that we're trying to minimize the issues that are occurring on those holidays. Has the volume of crime risen in our community in the past 2 years? Is it from the homeless or is it organized gangs?
It's going to be a mixture of things that are going on. And remember, there's a lot of things that are driving crime. It's not one particular thing. You have on the enforcement side, there's just a lot less of us, so less cops, more crooks. I think you guys understand that formula pretty well. Less prosecutions, more crooks. Remember, they do their own risk assessment. It's not just us that do risk assessment. The crooks do the exact same thing. And with the DA not prosecuting juveniles as adults, that tells the adults, let's give the gun to Junior. And let Junior do the intimidations, the extortions, the drive-bys. Because if that person gets caught, worst they face is being detained at 25, and that's becoming iffy, considering what's going on. So a lot of things are contributing to crime going up and going down. Some things are working in our favor, some things are working against us right now. So it's a mixed bag. We can't give one definite answer on that. I know we have some questions that were submitted.
Yes, sir. Some added questions. How many squad cars do you have patrolling our city? Number 2, what about increased crime in the area? Number 3, what is the solution to your staff shortage? 4, I requested increased patrolling because of reoccurring burglary and was told I'm better off applying for a CCW. Okay. On each shift, we have 3 shifts. We have 2 cars up in the Hacienda Heights area. In addition to that, we have 2 additional no-call county cars that work closely with our SAO teams. So technically 4 cars per shift up in the Hacienda Heights area. And right now, the sheriff's given us a lot of new bodies coming out to patrol to try and beef up our staffing. So those cars are going to be 2-man cars, which are nice, but they're going to be training units. And during that phase of training, it's very active, and the deputies will be up there doing a lot of good work. So that's a force multiplier for sure.
I think a question at the end was about CCWs. Well, for CCWs, we've issued about 2,500 to date. We made the good cause standard realistic, achievable standard. And assuming you don't have any felony conviction or restraining order against you or suffer some mental illness, you can get a CCW. The good cause standard, all it means is there's a particular reason why you as an individual face a greater threat than the average person. It might be because who you are, what type of work you're in, where you're doing your work. Stalker from hell just got released from jail. After you were the victim, things like that. And I've told my folks, be realistic, pragmatic in this approach, and that's why we've done more CCWs than all the past sheriffs, I think, in the history of the department at this point, under my watch, and we'll continue doing that.
We have issues with RV parking who reside in residential areas where children go and come from our local schools. I have reported this to Deputy Mesa School Police, and the industry sheriffs. Deputies several times. As an RV owner, where do they dispose their waste? Okay, I spoke about the RV issue a little bit earlier. The Hacienda Heights area was trying to do a non-conforming vehicle ordinance so that we couldn't park these vehicles overnight, and I understand it didn't go through. So again, my service area teams are out there working with Public Works, trying to get signage, trying to get red curbs up so we can address this problem. The issue is some of these folks that are in the RVs are very savvy to what's going on. So when we red tag that car, which has to sit there a certain amount of time before we could tow it, they just move it down the street a few feet, and then that red tagging starts all over again. So we're battling that. We know it's frustrating for you, it's frustrating for us, and we're trying to be innovative in the different ways that we can conquer this problem. Another motorhome problem. After considering pros and cons, do you recommend having weapons, guns, rifles at home to defend our family? The process of getting a gun rifle at home.
There's no restriction on gun ownership at home. The only thing I ask you, if you're going to be a gun owner, is be a responsible gun owner. Make sure your firearm, be it a handgun, rifle, shotgun, does not fall into the wrong hands, is not accessible to children in particular, because we want to avoid tragedies. So make sure you're a responsible gun owner, have it locked up, and know when you can use it and when you shouldn't be using it. All right, that's really what it boils down to.
Do you have any plans in the future to install a security camera system to prevent crime?
That's going to be up to the supervisors representing these districts. I know we have overlap of 2 supervisors, and it comes down to funding. It's becoming very popular in the more densely populated areas. West Hollywood, for example, Fairfax, Beverly Hills, they're all wired. You can't walk anywhere without seeing one of these security cameras. They're useful to an extent, but there is a cost associated with them. That's going to be up to your elected leaders if they want to represent you well and take on that cost. So ask them about it.
Our City of Industry is looking at the Vigilant flock camera system. City of La Puente has the flock camera system and some Vigilant cameras. And our Colima corridor going from Walnut over to our area over here has some of those Vigilant systems. So those have been very helpful in not only investigating crimes, but bringing people to justice and finding them and making arrests. You have always stated that you are a JFK Democrat. What would it take for you to publicly support common sense Republican candidates, since you are doing your best to protect LA County with common sense?
That's a good one. Well, I've supported Nathan Hochman for Attorney General, who's a moderate Republican. So there's one right there. Philip Chen, there's another one. And Mike Garcia, there's a third. And I may agree or disagree with some of their positions, but all 3 of them done some very important things. They're not afraid to talk to a Democrat, for starters, and that is healthy. And I need to have Democrats do the same thing. I need Republicans to endorse some Democrats. Because when we start having people look at each other as co-workers, colleagues, neighbors, fellow Americans, all of a sudden we start breaking down barriers. How much time and energy is spent in Washington and Sacramento with the red team yelling at the blue team and the blue team yelling at the red team? What is accomplished out of it? Not a whole lot. Why does it take a crisis like Ukraine or 9/11 for people to break down these partisan divides? True bipartisanship means you have to tolerate and support other points of view. And I remember the Democratic Party of JFK and FDR. I can't say I physically remember the party of FDR, but I was told about it. But the point is, in those days, and let's go to JFK's era, let's go to Ronald Reagan. Every Friday afternoon, he'd sit down to have a beer with a fellow Irishman named Tip O'Neill, Speaker of the House and the President. The number one and the number three would sit down and talk. And from that, you had the bipartisan immigration reform bill back in the 80s under Reagan. Today, Reagan would be classified as a liberal Democrat. Isn't that weird? John F. K. would be classified as a conservative Republican. Go figure. What we should stop doing is trying to pigeonhole people. Well, let me pigeonhole them as this thing. That way, if it's not in my favorite pigeonhole, I can just dismiss him. No, that's intellectual laziness, for starters. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to find an excuse why not to listen to that person. How about listen to what they're actually saying? Investigate, educate yourself, read. The failure of county government and city government is it, and I poke fun at the woke crowd, and we know who they are. In the woke crowd, I'm going to defend and support their right to have that perspective and whatever their ideology is. I want them to have a seat at the table. But the problem in county and city government, they occupy every single seat at the table. No other perspective is allowed. That's why they can avoid, the Public Safety Advisory Committee of the MTA can vote 14-0 to get rid of cops on the trains and buses and not bat an eye. And I spent 2 days on the trains, and I talk to real passengers, and they think they're nuts. They want to see twice as many cops. See the difference there? There wasn't a transit rider on that advisory committee. There wasn't a parent with loved ones that rides the trains every day. There wasn't a taxpayer that's looking out for the best use of their tax dollar on there. There wasn't a conservative or a moderate. No, you had to ascribe to or worship at the altar of wokeism to qualify to be on that board. So if you're not a highly paid activist, the ones with the bullhorns yelling, running around the street, you didn't exist. And that decision is a reflection of that. So my job, and it should be the job of every elected official in every capacity, is to make sure everyone has a seat at the table and every voice is heard. And the decisions that come out of that, you can say, I was heard, and okay, I'm okay with that. But today, we exclude people from having a seat at the table because we don't want to listen to their agenda. We've already measured it and decided that their position is worthless. Well, I'm going to defend the woke person. I'm also going to defend the conservative person. I'm going to defend the taxpayer, the parent, the religious person, the person who makes decisions based on their faith. I think that's important. They have to have a seat at the table, including people who do not believe in religion of any kind. They also have to have a seat at the table. When we do that, when we can embrace different points of view, that is what brings us together as a community. And that's diversity of thought, perspective, and action. The true diversity that we need that moves us forward as a nation. We're missing it right now. So my goal, and I've been to Republican settings where I've got a standing ovation from Republicans and they identify me as a Democrat. I need to get a Republican to a Democratic organization and have that Republican receive that same standing ovation. And we're off to something good right there. That is very powerful. The homeless problem in Venice got Democrats and Republicans talking to each other as neighbors because they realized they were neighbors. Behind closed doors on social media, each one was trashing the other person's favorite president. But it was the homeless person defecating their front lawn They brought them together. They realized that's actually the most important thing in my life. It's sad but true. We have to think bigger than our set of beliefs and understand there's a lot more than what we imagine. We have to be curious. And we have to realize the more you get educated, the more you understand how little you truly know. Because who knows the most? That 13-year-old kid, right? Got the whole world figured out. And as you get older in age, that's why your parents laugh at you. And your grandparents laugh even more. Because they'll eventually figure out what you know now, right? So ask 2 important questions you can always ask of everything. How do you know what you know? To any critic of anything. How do they know what they know, and why do they do what they do? When you do that, that's a journey, but it's an important one, because then you start realizing what you read in the media, about 2/3 of it is just opinion. About 1/3 of it at best is actual information as news. And that's true of on conservative media, liberal media, more or less middle-of-the-road media. We're so used to having people give us their opinions and try to masquerade it as news. The actual news is very small. So we just got to do a better job of educating ourselves and knowing what's BS from what's reality. Oh, can I say that here? Sorry, sir, my apologies.
All right, unfortunately, our evening is coming to a close. It's 8 o'clock, and thank you for all the questions that were submitted. We weren't able to get to a couple of them, but I'm sure the sheriff's going to have a ton more town halls that you can fire those questions at him.
I got to do something I've never done before, but we're in a house of worship. How many people are familiar with Psalm 91? A few of you are? It's an important one in law enforcement and the military. And why? And it kind of, let me see if I get this one right. He who in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him I will trust. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the perilous pestilence. He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you shall take refuge. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. You shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor the destruction that lays waste at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you look and see the reward of the wicked. For you have made the Lord, who is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation. No evil shall befall you, nor shall any plague come near your dwelling. For He has given His angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot. For He has set His love upon me, therefore I will deliver Him. I will set Him on high, because He has known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. My wife and I pray that every day, Psalm 91, and it's important to us. And it just kind of shows us that no matter what challenges we face, have faith in man above, and we'll overcome every obstacle. Thank you all, and have a safe day.
Thanks, sir.
How do you do? Good? You got good?
All right. Hey, really quick, I'd like to please a round of applause and say thank you to Melissa over here for doing a great job. And all of our personnel from Sheriff's Information Bureau that made this happen today. It turned out wonderful. And please call the station. We have the highest probability of success, preventing crimes, investigating crimes, arresting people, and dealing with quality of life when we all work together. And that's indicative in the numbers that we talked about tonight. So thank you again.